Sphingolipids can literally change the architecture of our brain cells. They can literally alter the dynamic functions that a cell membrane participates in, and they can enable them to do things in a different way. We don't want just to have a brain. We want to have a high-performing brain. We want our brain to be firing on all cylinders. We want a healthy memory. We want healthy reaction time. We want the ability to focus. The list goes on and on and on. So what do phospholipids contribute in that domain? Well, a big part of this is phospholipids' ability to support mental performance under stress. A recent double-blind, placebo-controlled trial found that the consumption of phospholipids helps to enhance attention and improve reaction time when test subjects were placed under acute stress. So they were putting them under stress, and the consumption of these phospholipids helped them to maintain their focus and to enhance their attention, even under that acute stressor. Now, this study had participants to also report their subjective experience, and they reported reduced participation anxiety, which is a big issue today. You know, if you've got anxiety around test taking or doing a certain presentation or performance, phospholipids can really help in this. And also, the test subjects reported an increased sense of mental energy. All right, so again, that's what it's really all about. It's not just having a brain, but it's having a high-performing brain with a lot of healthy, vivacious, robust energy. Now, we know a little bit about what these phospholipids bring to the table. Again, this is just 1/3 of the fats that the brain is primarily made out of, but it's very important. So what are some of the specific food sources where we can find these phospholipids? Well, phospholipids can be found directly from foods like fish, specifically fatty fish, like salmon, like herring, like mackerel, but also crab meat, also salmon roe and caviar. So those are fish eggs, all right? So there's a very dense source of phospholipids that are found in the eggs of the fish, even more so than the fish itself. Also, soybeans, milk, oats, and sunflower seeds are all viable sources of phospholipids that your brain literally, it's able to cross the blood-brain barrier and to feed and support and to create these building blocks for our brain cells themselves. All right, so now we can get into a debate about which food is going to be ideal from all these different ones that I'm listing. I'm just listing where the data shows they're a viable, clinically proven source of these phospholipids. But at the end of the day, it's always going to depend on you. Which food source is going to be ideal based on your unique needs, your unique metabolic fingerprint, all right? But we're just going to provide a plethora of different options today, things to think about, things to explore, and things to have fun with. So again, those are some proficient sources of phospholipids, but one of the most nutrient-dense sources of phospholipids that you're going to find that has about 10,000 milligrams of phospholipids per 100 grams of product is going to be egg yolks. All right, egg yolks have a tremendous amount of phospholipids, bioavailable phospholipids. So those are some different foods to look for. Now, the group of phospholipids can actually be broken down. It's an umbrella that contains other types of categories of phospholipids, like phosphatidylserine and phosphatidylcholine. Now, we're going to move on. We mentioned these phospholipids are just 1/3 of the primary fats that the brain is made of. Again, upwards of about 60% of the dry weight of the human brain is made of fats. But there are 3 types of fats that are often not talked about. Number 1 is phospholipids. Number 2 are called sphingolipids. Sphingolipids function as building blocks of biological membranes and play important signaling and regulatory roles within the cell. All right, so we're talking about the membrane of the cell. And if you listen, there's brain in that word, membrane. For many years, it was considered that the nucleus of our cells throughout our bodies was really considered to be the brain of the cell. But you can actually remove the nucleus of the cell. And we talked about this with the incredible Dr. Bruce Lipton, cell biologist, and really one of the pioneers in epigenetics. And he would do this work decades and decades ago, removing the nucleus, but the cell was able to continue on performing many of the same functions even without its brain. When we remove your brain, we can't do anything. All right. So having that parallel that the nucleus is the brain of the cell, which is what I was taught in my elementary and middle school and even high school and beyond, even college biology classes, that's kind of the parallel that's made. But the membrane of the cell has a tremendous amount of intelligence and really functions in communication with all of our cells. Right? So being able to think and to respond to the environment, that's really powerful. And this is a big role that our sphingolipids play. And these are not just located, again, just in our brain, but throughout our bodies, which is the case for many of these different types of fats. But specifically, sphingolipids make up another one of the 1/3 of the most abundant fats in the human brain. Sphingolipids can literally change the architecture of our brain cells. They can literally alter the dynamic functions that a cell membrane participates in, and they can enable them to do things in a different way. So they can help our brain cells to adapt and change and to do things in a different way. How important is that if we experience any type of damage and we think that if this one pathway isn't working, what are we going to do? How are we going to be able to perform? How are we going to be able to move on? And it's very similar to life itself. When an obstacle comes up in our way, if it's on your GPS and you've got an app like Waze, for example, it finds another route. That's not just out here in the external world. Our bodies do that as well. So sphingolipids help our brain cells to find another way. It helps our nervous system to find another way, another path, because there's always a solution. Also, they're involved in intracellular signaling that can alter the behavior of our cells altogether. So intracellular, so the communication within the cell itself, and it can totally alter the behavior of our cells. It's really powerful to be able to influence the behavior of our cells like that. Really, really remarkable stuff. Sphingolipids. Now, these sphingolipids are not merely structural elements, but they're also recognized as regulators of our cellular events. They actually play a tremendous role in things like cancer prevention. All right. Now, obviously, we can have cancer show up in a myriad of different tissues and organ systems in the human body, including the brain. Now, sphingolipids assist in limiting cell replication. So they're helping to make sure that the cell replication process is taking place normally. And when things start to go abnormally, like things going past that Hayflick limit where they're not supposed to replicate anymore, where cancer can kind of just have this unlimited growth, sphingolipids help to make sure that that stays in check. Very, very important. They also, within that, can help to signal apoptosis, which is a programmed cell death when the cells are going too far. They're just trying to take over things, trying to take over, the entire community and do what they want. Sphingolipids help to take out rogue cells if necessary. And also dysregulation of our sphingolipids are heavily implicated, not just in cancer, but also in neurodegenerative diseases. When these sphingolipids are functioning abnormally or there's some kind of deficiency taking place, this is when we see a rapid decline in our cognitive health. Now, what are some sources? What are some food sources of these all-important sphingolipids? Now, these, again, are structural fats, and these are maintenance and fats that have a purpose and performance. So these are fats. They are going to have a parallel with our dietary fats. These are oftentimes the building blocks for these things, but it doesn't always necessarily translate. But we do know that sphingolipids, dense food sources, are available, and these are some of the most brain healthy foods that have ever been discovered. Now, some dense sources of sphingolipids are going to be found in foods like eggs, butter, yogurt, cream, and then surprisingly, foods like sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes are a really good source of sphingolipids, and rice is a good source of sphingolipids. And in the conversation of rice, we actually break down rice to the nth degree in Eat Smarter and talk about all things in that spectrum, from white rice to brown rice, and that whole battle that's been going on for decades now. And what's the truth? What's going on with rice? Rice, baby. That's what we talk about in Eat Smart as well. But just know that there's a certain way to cook these foods, and they've been utilized literally for thousands of years. All right. So there's something there. There's a reason behind it that many societies have subsisted on foods like rice and sweet potatoes as well. So we mentioned with sphingolipids, we've got, again, eggs, butter, yogurt, cream, rice, sweet potatoes. Those are some really good sources of sphingolipids. Now, this is where things get really, really cool, really interesting. One of the most dominant sphingolipids is something called sphingomyelin. Sphingomyelin. Now, these molecules serve as signaling molecules that hold important roles in neuronal differentiation, so making sure that our brain cells are becoming what they need to become, synaptogenesis, so the creation of these synaptic pathways, which is how our brain cells are communicating and connecting, and many other roles as well. Now, this sphingomyelin, if you hear there's a part of the word here, myelin, this is very, very important. We're going to talk more about that in a moment, but one of the most dominant sphingolipids is called sphingomyelin. Very, very important. Now, sphingomyelins interact with the third of our three major types of fats or lipids that the brain is made of. They interact with these specific category of fats. Sphingomyelins interact with these specific category of lipids to perform a myriad of functions in the brain. And this third category is cholesterol. The brain actually contains the highest concentration of cholesterol in our bodies, right? The brain contains about 20% of our entire body's cholesterol. Now, the human brain is only about 2% of our body's mass, but it consumes upwards of about 25% of the caloric intake that we bring in. It is very, very hungry organ, and it's also very hungry for cholesterol. Now, here's the rub, because the cholesterol that's located in the human brain is primarily made on demand by our brain cells themselves. All right. It's made on demand within the brain. Our brain cells can make it. It is that vital and that important. But as you know, cholesterol is one of those dirty words. It's a dirty word. It's a bad word in our culture. When there's no context, there's no nuance. We just believe that this thing is bad for you, leads to heart disease. And recently we broke this down with one of the foremost experts in the world in this subject matter, Dr. Johnny Bowden. And we'll put that episode for you in the show notes. It's really a masterclass on all things cholesterol. So just understand that cholesterol is one of the most important nutrients for the human body. Not to say that there isn't situations where cholesterol can be problematic. Absolutely. But for the most part, it's really been shifted so much without any context, without any nuance, and without any education on how important cholesterol is. Because cholesterol, for example, is literally, it's a precursor to making our sex hormones. All right. If we don't have cholesterol, you're not going to do it. All right. We need it. But our sex hormones are not just for sex. They're just the overarching umbrella label. All right. Our sex hormones are for so many other aspects of our vitality. All right. Cholesterol is critical in that. Cholesterol is critical in the synthesis of vitamin D, turning sunlight into usable forms of vitamin D. We have to have that. Vitamin D plays multiple roles in our immune system function, anti-cancer applications, many different roles in growth and development, the health of our brain, the health of our reproductive system, the health of our heart. The list goes on and on and on. And we did a master class on vitamin D as well. So make sure to check out that episode too. But please understand, these are just some of the roles, total body roles that cholesterol plays. But within the brain itself, it is so critical that the brain is constantly making this powerful substance. Now, these sphingomyelins combine and interact with cholesterol to make our myelin. And myelin is the fatty sheath coating around our nerve axons that literally facilitate these electrical impulse conductions from cell to cell. All right. So what that really means is myelin getting laid down over these brain cells, these the connectivity of our brain cells helps to insulate conductivity and basically providing an accelerated speed of electrical transmission, a speed of electrical impulses. So the more myelin that's getting laid down, we'll just take, for example, how does this play out in our day-to-day lives? This activity of myelin and its insulation and being able to speed up electrical impulses within our brain and our nervous system. What does that look like? Well, this, for example, takes place, there's more myelin getting laid down when you're taking your first steps, to where, a child is taking their first steps to where they're very proficient in walking, to where walking is automatic. You can walk, talk, listen to music, listen to podcasts, dance. You could do all kinds of stuff while walking. You don't have to think about it anymore. It's automatic. It's firing continuously, smoothly, because of that insulation being laid down by myelin. It makes things automatic. And here's a big key. When it comes to something like sports performance, for example, and you think about all of the practice shots that someone like Steph Curry is taking, right, to lay this pathway down, this automation of these nerves firing, to where you can do it at the drop of a hat, anytime, anywhere, all kinds of funky, crazy positions, that pattern, that motor unit, that conductivity, all of those things are firing together, interacting with speed, because this is the big takeaway, is that it's not practice makes perfect. It's practice makes permanent. And it makes permanent because it's laying down more myelin. All right, that's how powerful this is. So all of this stuff in a practical application, cholesterol and sphingomyelin, we need these to be able to create this insulation for this conductivity of our cells firing in these different processes, these different patterns. This is what makes us more efficient, more effective, faster. And this is one of the things that's, again, often looked over in the communication about cognitive well-being and performance, is what is our brain actually made of, and what can we do to fortify and to support this process? So my question was, when I first learned about this and being able to work with some of the most incredible neuroscientists in the world, Dr. Lisa Mosconi, Dr. Wendy Suzuki. I just did a guest lecture for her neuroscience class at NYU, and having these incredible conversations and insights, my question is, okay, if the brain is making cholesterol, how's it doing it? What's going on? What are there specialized cells that are doing this? And the answer is absolutely. It is believed that certain cells in the brain called astrocytes. We already talked about the analogy with the brain and the universe, but astrocytes produce most of our brain's cholesterol. Now, these star-shaped cells of the central nervous system are a subtype of glial cells, right? Astrocytes actually outnumber our neurons. Okay, so we got glial cells and we've got neurons. Our astrocytes actually outnumber our neurons by over 5-fold in the brain. There's so many more of these star-shaped cells. In humans, a single astrocyte cell can interact with up to 2 million synapses at the same time. It's like these incredible little orbits, these little galaxies operating with each and every one of these astrocytes. Again, the human brain is so absolutely incredible. But there's a tremendous amount of cholesterol that is synthesized within the brain with our astrocytes, but also there's some dietary implications here as well. But in particular, when we are a baby, all right, when we're developing. Now, this isn't often talked about, but the things that have been demonized in our culture so much the last few decades, and thankfully a lot of really solid science is coming forward. Things that have been villainized, like saturated fat, for example, like cholesterol, without any nuance or context. These are some of the most important fundamental things for making up the human body, the human brain. Mother's milk, human breast milk, can be upwards of even 50% saturated fat, 30 to 50% saturated fat. Why would nature do that if saturated fat's gonna kill you? It doesn't make any sense. And it's because it's blatantly wrong. But this is not to say that certain types of dietary saturated fats can't be problematic, but we have to have a little bit more of a meta perspective, a little bit more nuance, and also understanding where are our fats coming from? Are they coming from real whole foods, or are they coming from highly refined processed foods that our DNA has never interacted with in the history of humanity? Now, I'm going to say that the former is going to be much better for us. Again, if it's coming from real whole foods, especially if our DNA has been interacting with that food for a long time, the lineage of humanity. Now, a tremendous amount of cholesterol is actually synthesized in the brain within the first few weeks of birth. And disruptions to this process have been well documented to lead to neurodegenerative diseases. So if this process is inhibited, with cholesterol being able to make its way into the brain, also the brain to be able to start to produce it itself, again, based on the building blocks that we give our children, this can set us up for a lifetime of problems and accelerated aging of the brain and abnormal development of the brain. So this is pretty important stuff. Now, cholesterol also plays a key role in neuronal differentiation, right? So cells becoming the right stuff that they're supposed to become, and also cellular plasticity in the brain. All right. So the brain cells being able to adapt and to conform to different situations, environmental inputs, to be able to get jobs done and to adapt. Cholesterol also plays an important role, and this is very, very, very important if we're thinking about something like a traumatic brain injury, but cholesterol plays an important role in nerve regeneration after injury. So this is yet another spot that cholesterol might be coming to the rescue, but it's just considered to be the bad guy if we're talking about heart disease, for example. And it's just like there's a situation going on. We find cholesterol here. They must have lit the fire, but maybe the cholesterol is the fireman. Who knows? There's got to be some nuance. But in this context, make sure to check out that episode with Dr. Johnny Bowden. Incredibly eye-opening. But in this context, cholesterol plays an important role in nerve regeneration. So helping to build back those nerves and get things back online again. Very important. Now, with that said, and this being such a threat in our world today, if we're talking about cholesterol and heart disease, which one of the studies that we mentioned in that episode was a major, huge meta-analysis that was conducted. And it was revealed that about 75% of the people that are hospitalized with a cardiac event, with a heart attack, for example, the vast majority of those people didn't even have high cholesterol. And as a matter of fact, that cholesterol number, what's considered high, has been ratcheting down lower and lower and lower, putting more people above that threshold. And so still 75% of the people hospitalized with a cardiac event didn't even have high cholesterol. So how is it the causative agent for heart disease? Like, there's already a big conflict in that hypothesis. Again, it's not to say that cholesterol can't be problematic, but the overarching black and white, the Michael Jackson version of this is good, this is bad, cholesterol, this is good cholesterol, this is bad cholesterol, is completely ignoring the complexity of the human body and the human brain. With it being such a big player in what's believed to be the major villain in cardiac events and heart disease, this is driving a statin industry, the pharmaceutical industry, that's creating about $30 billion a year in revenue for pharmaceutical companies with statin drugs. They've been raking it. Like, get the rake out. They're just raking it in. They're racking it up. But what's the underlying issue here? If we're targeting something to reduce cholesterol, what is the impact if your body needs cholesterol for so many different processes? Are the statins selectively targeting the right thing? Well, multiple reports now, and there are several meta-analysis on this, but multiple reports of significant short-term memory loss has been associated with statin drug use, prompting the FDA to actually put a warning on this drug class because of it. We just talked about how important cholesterol is for the human brain. It has roles in helping to facilitate and build our myelin. It has roles in memory as well, focus, attention, all those things. There's actually been, by the FDA, they put a warning. Hey, you might experience some short-term memory loss. We don't know. Look away. But also, we've got to be able to ask ourselves, in taking this statin and understanding the multiple roles that cholesterol plays in the human body, what other, quote, side effects might be taking place? Because again, we're looking at taking a synthetic drug, a synthetic chemical, to have an isolated effect on cholesterol. But it will inherently affect every other cell in our bodies because it's all taking place within our body. It's not a side effect. These are direct effects. And one of the things that's been noted for years now, when I was running my clinical practice, I had people, this is over a decade ago, I had reports. I'm showing people as they're coming in, they're on their statins and they're on lisinopril and they're on metformin and they're on all these different drugs. And I'm just helping them to get educated, even about drug interactions that their physician oftentimes isn't even, this person isn't talking to that person. The cardiologist isn't talking to the immunologist oftentimes. And so looking at the drug interactions, for example, but one of the things that was noted, well documented right at this point, and it's crazy that I'm still talking about this and this hasn't been changed, but there's a significant increased incidence when someone is on a statin of developing diabetes, of developing insulin resistance, which is one of the most detrimental, damaging, deadly things for our brain and our cognitive ability. Because right now, Alzheimer's is actually being reclassified. The name is type 3 diabetes. There's an insulin resistance taking place in our brain. The human brain is an absolute sponge for sugar, for glucose. But through our evolution, we didn't get it that often. So whenever it comes in, the brain is like, I got this. Let me get that. And your brain will gladly confiscate about 50% of the glucose that comes in, the sugar that you take in, the carbohydrates that you take in the meal. Your brain will gladly confiscate half of that. Now just imagine the amount of sugar that can be flooded into the human brain today with the way that we eat. You know, if I think about growing up and, you know, me getting my penny candy, heading to the corner store with $1, you're rich. Where I'm from, you get 100 pieces of candy, penny candy. You get 100 pieces. Where's the tax at, actually? How did that all work out? I don't know. But anyways, 100 pieces of candy, and you're going to knock out a solid half of that bag in a day. Can you imagine all the sugar that's just getting siphoned into my brain? You know, if we think about, the 2-liter sodas, and we think about, you know, all of the pastries and the donuts and the cakes and the cookies and all of these different things that are just, I'm inundated with this stuff growing up. What kind of effect is that happening on our brain? When we talk about, you know, somebody having a blood sugar high, we think, that's some kind of funny term. It's not funny. All right. There's literally a big shift taking place in our brain. And when brain cells start to get damaged from the abnormal amount of sugar, and also the sensitivity of those cells to uptake glucose can go down. We start to lose that sensitivity. That satellite dish that's receiving that data from the glucose can start to basically close off, get smaller, or even get broken. And you can't have this glucose just running freely around within that incredible brain of yours. So this process of insulin sensitivity or insulin resistance in the brain is incredibly detrimental, one of the leading causes that we know now of Alzheimer's disease. The next one of our powerful foods that resemble the human body part, that we now have peer-reviewed evidence on its benefit, is walnuts and the human brain. All right, now again, make sure to check out the YouTube version because it is uncanny how much a walnut looks like the brain. Now, strikingly, compounds found in walnuts have been shown to be remarkable in their effects on the human brain. Notably, compounds in walnuts have been shown to help scrub your brain clear of the harmful amyloid beta peptide that leads to bona fide amyloid plaque buildup in the brain. And this amyloid plaque buildup is associated with dementia and Alzheimer's and more. And walnuts have some protective benefits here. The data highlighted in the journal Neurochemical Research demonstrates that walnuts have the potential to reduce oxidative stress, reduce inflammation, and protect your brain cells from an early demise. Walnuts are packed with brain-healthy vitamins, minerals, and fats. And recent research from UCLA suggests that eating a handful of walnuts per day may actually help to boost memory. The researchers found that walnuts appear to have benefits on improving memory, concentration, and the speed at which your brain processes information. Again, it's not just the structure of the brain and being protective of that, but also the functionality and that playing out in the real world with improved memory. Walnuts, compact in their very own hard shell, like your cranium, for example. And again, it's another little bit of that's really interesting. That's an interesting coincidence. And without special equipment, it can be a really hard nut to crack. Now, also in that same lane of functionality and that whole body benefit, walnuts have been found to interact with the brain and other organs to coordinate the release of certain satiety hormones. So these hormones that help us to feel satisfied, to experience a sense of fullness and not be experiencing ravenous hunger, right? So these nuts, including walnuts, are a great category of foods that have really great benefits on our satiety hormones. But notably here in this context, walnuts. So not only do they look like the brain, they have beneficial impact on our brain cells as well. So with this, walnuts, again, super easy to use. You can snack on walnuts. We can add some to a smoothie. You can get yourself some walnut butter. Easy to add to trail mix, salads. You can obviously use them in a variety of culinary dishes. This is something simple to add to, snacks. So sprinkling on some yogurt, gluten-free oats, or whatever you're into. Walnuts, easy add-in, but the question is, are you using them because your brain really seems to like them? All right, we're gonna move on. We're at number 7 on our list of these 11 powerful foods that surprisingly resemble the organs in the human body that they have benefit for, clinically proven benefit. All right, now this next one is, we tend to think of our lungs simply as these air-filled sacs in our chest, right? We got these sacs in our chest, but there's a lot more than air going on in there. Within the lungs, helping to make the breathing magic happen are the bronchi, which strikingly resemble the larger stems of broccoli. The bronchioles, which mimic the way broccoli has smaller branches springing off from the large main branch, and the alveoli, which are the tiny air sacs at the end of the bronchioles that resemble the buds from the flowering head of the broccoli. Again, you've got to see the YouTube version to see just how similar broccoli looks to the inner workings of the lungs. Now, the lungs are incredibly complex and powerful. Take the alveoli, for example. These tiny buds are where the lungs and the blood exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide during the process of breathing in and breathing out. That's some seriously powerful activity happening in those tiny little buds. Now, they're tiny, but they are incredibly mighty in their performance. Now, how does the broccoli and lung health connection play out in the real world? Because again, once you see this similarity in their appearance, it's really, really crazy and cool, but how does this play out? Well, researchers at Johns Hopkins University found that sulforaphane, a plant chemical that is made by broccoli and other cruciferous vegetables, helps to restore the immune system pathways within the lungs that clean out harmful pathogens and reduce the risk of infections. Researchers at UCLA also noted the potent ability of sulforaphane to reduce inflammation, specifically in the lungs. Another study, and this was featured in the journal BMC Cancer, revealed some remarkable benefits in reducing lung cancer risk in smokers and former smokers. The researchers found that the isothiocyanates that are uniquely found in broccoli and other cruciferous vegetables have a cancer modulating effect that defends the lungs against smoking related damage. They noted that the isothiocyanates modulate carcinogen metabolism and facilitate carcinogen detoxification. That's really, really powerful. Now, circling back to the anti-inflammatory effects that broccoli compounds have on the lungs, I was shocked by how many peer-reviewed papers have come out recently analyzing the benefits that these broccoli compounds can have against COVID-19. I couldn't believe it. Like, who thinks of that? But I love it because this is the world that we live in right now. Yes, there's a lot of nonsense. Yes, a lot in medicine has been barking up the wrong tree. But there's so many folks now who are aware of the remarkable benefits and compounds that are found in foods that have just amazing benefits in the human body. Whereas food has largely been brushed off to the side in its importance in medicine, and negating the fact that our tissues are literally made from food. And we're trying to adjust and treat tissues with these external synthetic treatments, right? These newly invented treatments, not understanding that our tissues themselves are made from the things that we eat. So does food matter? Of course it matters. And now many researchers have really put this top of mind and they're looking at things like this because, again, I was shocked. I couldn't believe how many studies were looking at these broccoli compounds and their relationship with COVID-19. Now, check this out. A report published in Trends in Pharmacological Sciences highlighted how sulforaphane acts upon the defensive pathways used by the lungs and other tissues that combat excessive inflammation triggered by COVID-19. Aha! Another study published in the World Allergy Organization journal titled Efficacy of Broccoli and Glucoraphanin in COVID-19. A paper, again, looking at broccoli and COVID-19. Who knew? Who thought of this? All right, so the title of the paper again was Efficacy of Broccoli and Glucoraphanin in COVID-19, from Hypothesis to Proof of Concept, with 3 experimental clinical cases. All right, so that's the title of the paper. And this paper analyzed several studies employing broccoli compounds in relationship to COVID-19. In one study, the scientists detailed that capsules of broccoli seeds containing glucoraphanin. So this is another one of these compounds that are abundant in broccoli. And they found that consuming these capsules of broccoli seeds containing glucoraphanin being taken before the onset of SARS-CoV-2 infection and were continued daily for over a month after the first COVID-19 symptoms. So they started taking them before, got the infection, and continued taking them. And the researchers stated that this intervention, consuming these broccoli concentrates, was found to reduce many of the symptoms of COVID-19 rapidly. Another aspect of the study found that the intervention led to a reduction in severity of cytokine storms. Now, I'll tell you, this doesn't sound real. Like broccoli versus COVID, it doesn't sound real. It doesn't, all right? Because our paradigm is such that, we're looking for a new drug, some kind of like science has to come together and we find this thing, and this doesn't fit into that paradigm. But the data exists, all right? It's really interesting. It's not saying that this is some curative agent, some magic end-all be-all, but there are some notable compounds in here that are helping to reduce inflammation and helping to reduce the severity of symptoms. So we should definitely acknowledge that. And this is why, again, there's multiple papers looking at this. And I was going to say, this is why we need to investigate this further. Because if this is beneficial here, what else can it be beneficial for? Now, the most concentrated form of these compounds, as kind of highlighted a little bit in that last study I mentioned, are the nutrients found not just in the broccoli itself, but in broccoli sprouts, which echoes the advice from Harvard researcher and founder of the Angiogenesis Society, Dr. William Li, who was on the Model Health Show several times and on recently to talk about COVID-19. And he's got some incredible insights very early on in this, and being able to get lung tissue from a cadaver and see the interaction that COVID-19 has on lung tissue, and finding that this is much more related to the capillary function, the endothelium, than what most folks realize. So this being more of a circulatory issue, not just this strictly respiratory condition. So really powerful stuff. We'll put that episode with Dr. William Lee for you in the show notes. But he talked about on the show how powerful broccoli sprouts can be as a preventative and supportive agent in relationship to this infectious disease that's on everybody's minds. So really cool stuff there. Broccoli resembles the inner workings of our lungs. And just so happens there's a tremendous amount of peer-reviewed evidence showing that broccoli does, in fact, have benefits, substantial benefits for our lungs. So same tenet here. If we can get organic broccoli, all good. We can get fresh broccoli. Frozen broccoli is a super easy thing to always have on hand in the freezer. Combining broccoli with some high quality fats is going to, because there's going to be fat soluble nutrients in the broccoli as well. So, obviously broccoli is kind of a standalone thing, but broccoli, funny enough, can also be added. Some people add broccoli to, different soups and smoothies and things like that as well. I'm not saying to do that. I'm not saying that's delicious, but some folks do. But the broccoli sprouts, one of my mother-in-law's, one of my greatest teachers and mentors, she would put the broccoli sprouts right on top of the salad, looking like a whole bunch of Albert Einstein's hair on top of her salad, right? And then she'd tear that up. And then, so that got me interested in the sprout. So I got into the sprout life. So shout out to Mama Mukami. I appreciate you immensely, always. All right, so broccoli sprouts, broccoli added in. All right, we're gonna move on here. We're up to 8 here on our list of foods that resemble the human body, different parts of the human body. And this one is looking at something that resembles directly human blood. I don't think there's any natural, whole, real food that resembles blood more than beets. All right, beets. If you've ever seen a beet juiced or juice a beet yourself, it comes gushing out like a scene from Blade 3. All right, Blade 3, apparently, the progression of the Blade movies went downhill, but I like Blade 3. It's had Ryan Reynolds in it. It was great. I thought it was good. But shout out to Wesley Snipes. And it's coming. They're redoing it now as well. The Marvel Universe is bringing Blade into the thing. Arguably, Blade kicked off the new Marvel paradigm and gave them a lift to do what they're doing today, because Marvel at the time, they were selling off their rights and their properties, their characters left and right to try to stay afloat. So, big shout out to Blade and to Wesley Snipes. Anyways, blood, back to blood. If anybody's like, what is Blade? He's a vampire. Okay. So beets and blood. Now, obviously the blood is also referred to as the river of life within our tissues. And it's transporting nutrients and oxygen everywhere that it needs to go to fuel, to provide nutrients to everything from our eyes to our spine to our toes. Thank you, blood, this river of life in our tissues, for doing the incredible job that it does. Now, how do beets, which again look like more than any other whole food, blood? It's kind of creepy, but how does this play out to benefiting our blood? Well, a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trial analyzed the effects of beet juice on blood pressure and endothelial function of older adults. At the end of the 4-week study, the results demonstrated that the participants receiving beet juice had significant improvements in blood pressure and improvements in large vessel endothelial function. Now, circling back to a little bit of the science we talked about with COVID-19, the damage to our endothelial function that takes place with that, our body's response, these cytokine storms, our response to interacting with this particular virus, a lot of the damage is being done to our endothelium. And so seeing that beet juice, again, of all things, has benefits in supporting endothelial function and also improving blood pressure. What's going on here? The naturally occurring dietary nitrates in beets appear to readily improve levels of nitric oxide in the body and support overall cardiovascular performance. And this carries out into the domain of sports and exercise as well. And this is really one of the big places that beets are being utilized today, is in sports and sports performance. And there's some really cool data on this too. A study published in the Journal of Applied Physiology showed that drinking beet juice boosts stamina up to 16% during exercise and sports training. What? That's incredible. 16% increase in stamina. And also the study noted that the participants even experienced less muscle damage and less fatigue after the exercise and training was over. All right, really, really cool stuff. So this is operating on supporting our blood in a myriad of ways when we're talking about beets. Beets, again, I mentioned juicing beets. There are a lot of different supplements that include beets right now, but again, the quality and the sourcing of these things matter a lot. You know, you can add beets to salads and different things as well. But it's just one of those really interesting things that has that direct, it looks, again, when you see beet juice, for example, it looks like blood, it looks like a pint of that B positive, but it really does have some benefits for supporting our blood in both managing blood pressure and in sports performance. So beets, now we're moving on to number 9 here. And number 9, we're keeping in the same domain the things that resonate and have a similarity with our blood and even our red blood cells. And this one is pomegranate. All right, pomegranate. A meta-analysis of 8 randomized controlled trials published in the journal Pharmacological Research detailed how pomegranates have antioxidant, antihypertensive, and anti-inflammatory effects, specifically in support of the cardiovascular system. And the study noted that drinking pomegranate juice consistently had blood pressure normalizing effects in test subjects. There it is, another one of those. This has risen in popularity recently. You know, there's some commercial pomegranate juices out there, but you gotta be careful with the sugar content in these things. All right, now, little fun fact, this is crazy. I never experienced anything like this, but, you know, I moved from the Midwest to California not that long ago. You know, it's been about a year and a half, maybe. World has been nuts since getting here, but in this climate, in this part, this space on how where it's situated on the globe, certain things just grow here. You know, a lot of folks have like avocados, like the next door neighbor has like orange trees and lemon trees and apple trees and all this stuff. Just walking down the street, you just see fruit just rolling down the street. Literally, I was walking yesterday morning and an orange fell off the tree, just rolled right up to me, creeped me out. All right, creeped me out. All right, so this is something very new to me. I didn't grow up with these kind of conditions, but earlier this year, I was outside in my backyard and I noticed there was this fruit hanging down from this bush, like right literally not that far from where I am. So I took a further investigation. I got a little closer with my curiosity and went over to pick a couple of them. And I found that one of them actually had a little bit of an entry point into it where a squirrel had gotten in there and was dining on that pomegranate goodness, you know, probably getting that, you know, that good blood circulation, you know, and taking it back to his, you know, squirrel companion, never mind. But, and by the way, if you've seen on Instagram, that's another thing about LA, like these squirrels are different here. Like St. Louis squirrels, they don't mess with people. Like if you're 100 yards away, they got caution. All right. Their yellow light comes up. All right. The squirrels in LA are different. You could walk right by and they're like, what you looking at, player? What is it? You know? And so, but if you see it on Instagram, I have a little squirrel buddy that comes up to me and literally he's like eats out of my hand, which is, I know some people are like, don't do that. The squirrel, what if you get this or that? Just relax. But one day my little squirrel buddy came up to eat a little snack that I had for him, and his teeth were so red. And it just like creeped me out. I was like, did he just murder somebody? And I'm just like, I don't know about my fingers now. And I got very apprehensive, but he's probably jumping into that pomegranate that, you know, was right there. So anyways, but there was a couple of other ones that weren't eaten into. And so I brought him in. My mother-in-law was here at the time. She actually, I believe she had one of them. But anyways, pomegranates are not that easy to get the nutrients out of because they're so like, it's compartmentalized. You know, it's kind of like this strange cellular world when you cut it open. And so you got to, you know, scoop out the seeds, and you know, it takes a tremendous amount to make juice out of. And there's some other beneficial compounds in there that you might be able to extract in different ways than just juicing it and potentially losing some of the compounds. So anyways, this was very strange for me, very weird experience, because also it comes up, especially coming from where I come from, where you never saw food just growing outside like that. You know, there's a part that comes up like, okay, I'm picking this fruit, but is this FDA approved? Like, I don't know. Like, there's a little bit of a apprehension. There's a little bit of reservation that comes up because of the association with food, you getting it from a place, an entity. And it's still there in me. I've had many experiences of like, you know, going and getting food, and, you know, I've grown some things, but it's still there. Like that little ghost of Shawn Christmas past comes up, and it's just like, ooh, the FDA. And now I know that the FDA really isn't, you know, come on, you already know. By the way, about 40% of the funding for the FDA comes from pharmaceutical companies who then, you know, they're approving the drug from the pharmaceutical companies. Let me stop. Let's not go down that track today. But we're focusing here on this phenomenon. Pomegranates are remarkable, and sometimes nature will just present you with the thing that you need to have. So this resonance that it has, again, this was 8 randomized controlled clinical trials and published in a journal that focuses on pharmacology, finding that pomegranates have really remarkable antioxidant, hypertensive benefits, and anti-inflammatory effects as well. All right, so but be mindful of that sugar content. There's got to be better ways. As a matter of fact, there is a better way. I'll tell you about in just a moment. Number 10 on our list, we're staying in that lane with the blood. Cranberries. Cranberries. Intercellular adhesion molecule 1, or ICAM1, is a glycoprotein that is overexpressed in many disease states, specifically in cardiovascular disease. ICAM1 also has a key function for the blood-brain barrier, okay? And it's a marker for inflammation. Elevated blood levels of ICAM1 have been shown to be increased in conditions such as major depression, bipolar disorder, and dementia, according to data published in Frontiers in Pharmacology. As for the blood and cardiovascular system, both ICAM1 and VCAM1, vascular cell adhesion molecule 1, are expressed within atherosclerotic lesions, and elevated plasma levels of these molecules suggest a role in the buildup of plaque within the arteries, and this was cited in the journal Circulation. All right, so not just so good. So what food can potentially improve our blood by targeting this specific issue? Over the course of a 4-week study published in the British Journal of Nutrition, test participants drinking low-calorie cranberry juice had significant decreases in ICAM1 and VCAM1 and reduced oxidation of circulating LDL. Again, the oxidation is really the big issue. And now we've got some really cool peer-reviewed evidence showing that cranberries, these compounds, and this food, again, that has this resonance, is this red juice, this blood-like appearance to it, and the cranberries themselves, looking like little cells, having this benefit for helping to defend the body against plaque buildup in the arteries, and in multiple ways, again, targeting ICAM1, VCAM1, and also the oxidation of LDL. So pretty remarkable stuff. We got cranberries, pomegranate, beet, get some like a blood transfusion, really up-leveling the quality of our blood, the river of life.
Why is it so hard to go to sleep?
It's just the environment that we live in today, and it's looking again at the question, so what is sleep actually? We have to start there.
What is it?
So this is this thing we're chasing after. We're trying to get more of it. We know it's important. But sleep is really, first of all, it's very strange. If you look at some of the characteristics from the outside, it's like you're unconscious. You know what I mean?
You lay there for hours.
You're vulnerable. You're not really moving. Your senses are dulled and gone down. Obviously your visual senses are reduced or just none unless you're weird and you have your eyes open.
Yeah.
But even your auditory, your sense of smell, your sense of touch, all those things reduce. And but what's different from that and like a coma is that it's easily, you can come out of it if somebody nudges you enough or, you have something that goes
It's
up.
a light coma.
Yeah, it's like a little
minor coma.
Mini hibernation. You're like a baby bear for a minute, But what we see in the inside, and this is what's so cool now, is that we can track and we can study the brain to see what happens. We know you're sleeping based on changes that happen in your brain waves. And so right now we're in a kind of normal waking state of beta frequency in our brain waves. Maybe a little gamma if we get to Bruce Banner amped up a little bit. But from our normal waking state of beta, we shift into alpha. It's just a slower pattern. And alpha is really aligned with what we would refer to as like getting in a flow state, right? It's just a calm, relaxed state of presence. And we naturally transition into that state when we're getting close to sleep. This is when a lot of creativity can kind of manifest.
So when we're getting ready for sleep, we get into alpha.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is why it's said it's very good to when you first wake up, because you go in reverse when you wake up, to focus on your day, your goals for the day. Because, so we move from beta to alpha, and then we go to theta. And theta is a really strong transitionary state. In theta, you're in what it would be considered if we looked at it as compared to something like a hypnotic trance, all right? And theta. And so
That's when you're asleep.
You're not asleep. This is a transitionary state, very close to sleep. And when you're in a hypnotic trance, like we were just talking about Marissa Peer, I was just talking with her the other day, but we're kind of trying to manipulate that theta frequency to kind of get in there deeper in the brain. And to give a good analogy, like kids up until the age of about 7 are spending a lot more time in theta. And so you're very impressionable, right? This is why kids believe everything,
Right.
I'm not gonna throw out any names, Santa Claus and anything like that. I'm not gonna say it's not real, but everything is just taken in very deeply, right? And this is where a lot of our programming that even lasts into our childhood takes place, right? So theta, you're very impressionable. And then from there, we transition into delta. And so this is when we know that we're in sleep. And then within our sleep, there are 4 primary stages. We have the big 2 that people know is non-REM sleep and REM sleep, right? So REM sleep, that's rapid eye movement sleep. This is when you're getting your dream on. And this is when
your eyes literally
it is freaky, right?
Really?
It is just a weird thing, yeah. So it's rapid eye movement, your eyes are moving.
And that's the best type of sleep?
No.
Okay.
I'm not gonna say best, it's a part.
Okay.
We need all of them, and this is the point we're gonna come to. And so this is when a process, for example, during REM sleep is when you have something called memory consolidation. This is where things that you're learning even right now get converted into your short-term memory, right? So it gets filed away and becomes more of a permanent potential thing in your brain. You need sleep in order to remember stuff.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. And so there's a study recently, and what they did was they had folks to do a memory test. And they had one set of the participants take the study, take the test in the morning, and then they had them to repeat the test at 2-hour increments for 12 hours. And then they tracked their results.
Okay.
And then they had another set of study participants. They had them take the test, and then they had them just, kind of wait all day, get a good night's sleep, and then retest in the morning without doing it over and over again. And they performed 20% better on the memory test, only testing once and then getting a good night's sleep and repeating. All right, we tend to think that we need to keep hammering.
So we
trial
shouldn't do the overnight, stay up all night, testing and quizzing ourselves. We should be actually practice for an hour, get a good night's sleep, and hopefully have better results.
Yeah, I mean,
than pulling all-nighters.
The thing is, we've been in this situation where we're pulling all-nighter because we don't know anything.
We don't know nothing. We got to study the whole book.
So yeah, man, but that's REM sleep, and then we have non-REM sleep. It's considered more of the anabolic deep sleep. Okay. This is where a lot of the anabolic hormones like HGH get secreted, right? And it's also known as the youth hormone. So kids have a lot of HGH.
Right.
Up until around 18 to 20, we have a big, sharp decline in our HGH production.
So how do we get more of that?
Sleep. You produce the greatest amount of HGH because we secrete it during the day. All of our hormones are based on the time of day. And this is another really important point, is that we're lined up with nature's clock, but we just don't realize it. Because humans have the unique ability, we can cut ourselves off from it. We could shut all the blinds and we could just create an eternal daytime in this room if we wanted to, you know what I mean? But all of our hormones are getting released in a cyclical pattern. And human growth hormone, our greatest secretion or skeet of the HGH happens during sleep. And specifically during that first stage of sleep, when we go for the first time into deep delta non-REM sleep.
That's when we're producing HGH.
Yeah.
We're creating more of it.
The biggest secretion happens then.
Okay.
Yeah, and so if you're not getting optimal sleep, you're missing out on this powerful vital hormone. And whenever I would hear HGH when I first started doing this research, getting close to a decade ago, I would think of Barry Bonds and like Jason Giambi.
Mark McGuire, yeah.
A-Rod, no disrespect.
Yeah.
No disrespect, Marion Jones, but it's because of ESPN, just seeing the highlights in the news. But human growth hormone is something that we produce, within our own bodies.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So
how do we produce more of it? It's only through sleep?
No, we could with exercise. Okay. Especially like
resistance
drivers of anabolic growth. So resistance training, but more so like power lifts. You can get a really good
powerlifting will help produce more HGH.
Yeah, and so the benefit.
And what does HGH do for you when you have
That's
more
what I was going to go to. So the benefit of HGH, it's not that what we tend to think is that it makes you perform better, specifically makes you bigger, right? That's what we think. If you see the transformation of somebody like Barry Bonds' body, it's not that it just makes you bigger and you can hit the baseball faster. They already have these skills. It's the recovery. It helps you recover a lot faster. My 8-year-old son can get out and run, do sprints with us like crazy, where we're just demolished the next day. And he's totally fine. Doesn't feel a thing.
He's just producing HGH in that sleep, baby.
He's healing. Yeah. He's healing. So it helps with healing. It does help with protein synthesis and also retention of muscle mass. So this is huge. This is something we tend to lose as we get older, is our muscle mass. And I think it's really important for us to understand when we're talking about body composition, weight loss, fat loss, all that stuff, muscle is your body's fat burning machinery, really. That's on your frame.
You need to have more of it if you want to burn fat.
Yeah, because even as we're sitting, we're not training right now, but depending on the amount of muscle mass that we carry on our bodies has a huge impact on how many calories we're burning just sitting here, our resting metabolic rate.
Right.
So HGH helps you to retain that muscle that you're out there working hard to build. So those are just a few of the things.
So what are the main lifts that you would say?
Oh man, I'll tell you straight up, deadlift is like, it's money in the bank for producing HGH.
And you're talking like heavy, or is this just like, if you're doing it, it's 70, 80%?
I mean, even 80% is pretty good, but we're talking like getting up there close to your max.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's for a lot of people, it's like that might be a little bit of fear comes up. Like, I don't want to lift that heavy. I'll tell you right now, I've been in this field for almost 20 years, all right? And what I've seen, people don't get hurt deadlifting. People getting hurt picking up a feather. They're getting hurt picking up a pillow.
Why is that?
Just because our bodies are so conditioned to sitting and not performing. And we're not doing the things that kids do that keep them healthy. Right? One of those things
jumping on the couch or just running around or just picking up stuff.
When do we do that?
We do it as a kid.
And then something happens and we're just like, our environment starts to say, stop playing. Yeah. Stop playing so much. Especially from where I'm from, it's like leaving, that's something we say, you play too much.
Wow, that's so true, man. You play too much.
But it's
you
so
should play
good
a
for
lot.
You
should play a lot.
You know what it does? And this is the thing, this is why, both of us love sports.
Yeah.
It's a dimension of that that's still socially acceptable, but we love it. You learn boundaries, you learn how to communicate in different ways besides just vocally. You learn how to move your body in space, and like things like proprioception. This is the awareness that of your body in space. You improve your proprioception, your neuroception, all these different aspects of our bodies interacting with our environment and also our internal environment. And if we're not playing, we're missing out on this vital part of our development.
Yeah.
So,
what are the best ways we can play, you think, as adults?
Oh man.
Is it sports, or is it just go out and throw a football or play frisbee, or what are the activities you think are best?
It's such a great question, man. This is so funny. I've been thinking about this like the last 2 weeks. I didn't realize I was doing this because my 2 sons live with me. I have 3 kids. My daughter's oldest. My 2 sons live with me. I have a 19-year-old son and an 8-year-old son that live in my house. And we just have a culture of like, we're dancing every day, like, I don't know why, we just do it. We're playing every day. Just the other night, my sons, we sat down and ate dinners together. And then afterwards they were fighting for like 20 minutes. But it was like, they're play fighting.
Sure.
And there's, with you being a parent, after a while, it's just like, would you shut up? Like, stop. Like we start getting irritated. You play too much. But then I catch myself like they're just having a good time. They're learning how to have those boundaries, how to play with each other, how to move in space, how to grab somebody and not hurt them versus hurt them. You know what I mean? So, and they're playing, they're having a good time. And the thing is, I'm the one who usually initiates it. I just want to do it for a couple of minutes.
Right, not
and
for
then
an
I'm just
hour.
like, all right, guys, chill out. You know what I mean? And so that's one of the things is, if you have children, play with your kids.
What's that mean, play? Wrestle?
A great exercise is, and what I used to do with my son, I mean, we just moved out to LA, so I don't know the landscape as much, but I would take my son to the park, and then I would just follow him and do whatever he does.
Whatever he wants to do.
Yeah.
And run around.
Going through the tunnels, climbing stuff. I follow you. He's the boss. Simon
great.
says. You know what I mean?
I like that.
That's one thing.
Okay. By the way, your wife has some of the best home cooking I've ever had is with your wife at your place.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I can't remember what it was specifically, but it was some like casserole type of thing.
Oh, the casserole, yeah.
So good, man.
The buffalo casserole.
Oh man, it was amazing.
And then she made cookies. And I know we were both like so done. And then she made cookies.
Throw a cookie
yep.
in there. You know what I'm saying?
Crushed those cookies.
Can always eat those cookies. That's my downfall, sugar.
Yeah.
How bad is sugar for sleep?
That's such a great question, man.
Because that's the only, I wouldn't say it's the only, but it's one of the negatives about me is that I eat too much sugar. And then I'll go off of it for like 60 days, right? I'm like extreme.
Yeah.
I'm all in on a bag of cookies. I can't just do one.
Yeah.
Or I'll do nothing for a long time.
But I think that deprivation can lead to the rebound behavior.
Probably. Because
You
I'm
know
just
what I
like,
mean?
now I need it.
Yeah. So here's the thing. So there was an incredible study that was done. And it's difficult to do human studies when it comes to addiction because of the implications, right? But there was a fantastic study done using rodents, using mice. And what they allowed the mice to do was have free access to either cocaine or sugar.
And they picked sugar.
96% of the time. The cocaine was not enough, right? They were so addicted to the sugar. And they took...
Sugar probably tastes better too, right?
They took rats that were already even addicted to cocaine, and they quickly progressed and shifted over to an addiction to sugar.
Wow.
It's that strong. And like humans, we're hardwired. If we're just looking at our biology, we're hardwired through evolution to crave and to enjoy sweet things. For our biology, it's an implication that there's a lot of dense calories there. It's a dense calorie source.
Yeah. It's not a calorie rich. It's not like a healthy calories, right?
Right. Not necessarily, but even the sugar we'd be exposed to through our evolution would be something like the biggest gift we'd run into maybe was some honey, but today we have everything 24/7. It's a whole, we're not wired up for this exposure. That's the thing.
Yeah, and honey was probably like it was probably so strong, and then you just put a little bit on to add, not like you dump the whole thing in there like a Winnie the Pooh or something.
Right.
It's just like licking out of the jar, because I can drink a whole jar of honey if I wanted to, you know what I mean?
I was so addicted to Honey Nut Cheerios. Like that was
oh
my
my
jam.
God, those are so good.
That little bee, man, it was like my bestie, man.
Oh, those
when
are
even
so
when I
good.
met my wife and I was like shifting, like I changed my health and I'd been working as a personal trainer for like a year and a half. But that was my thing. I was like eating organic, whatever, but I had my Honey Nut Cheerios.
Wow.
It was my midnight snack, right? But and here's the thing.
The milk tastes amazing. At the
afterwards,
end.
the milk.
Oh my gosh, it's so good.
Get me started, man.
I haven't had cereal in a long time.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that was the hardest for me to let go of, but it's something I eliminated essentially from my diet.
Yeah.
And I just replaced with cookies or something else.
Yeah, man, it's crazy, dude. This the culture again. That's the big thing. But just on that point of how does this affect our sleep? I think it's a really great question. And so the first thing to understand is the impact that sugar has on various hormones. If we're thinking about, cortisol, for example, or, stress response. And basically what happens is when we eat a high concentration of sugar, we get this hit and it feels good. We get like a serotonin hit, and this is why some carbohydrates, like if we are selectively getting our carbohydrates, it can be a good thing, right? But it's just when we go too far and we have a hypoglycemic response, right? And so we get a blood sugar spike and then a blood sugar crash. And that for us, that's emergency to our biology, because when your blood sugar goes too low, you have reduced brain function, and your body, if we're talking about survival in the conditions that we evolved in, you're not sharp.
You're tired.
Exactly, and you can be more of a victim, right? And so, or prey. And so what happens is you get a response from your sympathetic nervous system and your cortisol levels, norepinephrine, adrenaline, all those things start to spike to lift your blood sugar back up again.
So you're not vulnerable.
Exactly. So that you're just sharp and ready and okay and prepared.
So your body's just going up and down all day, as opposed to a steady and maybe a spike when you eat a little bit and then steady and right? Or
but if we're talking close in proximity to sleep, that's gonna really mess your sleep up. Yeah.
So when there's all these different people that talk about intermittent fasting or when you should stop eating by. What does the research say about eating before sleep? Anything, whether it's healthy, a snack, a dark chocolate, a wine, I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
Is there a time limit you should stop eating by before sleep? And is there certain foods you can eat before sleep that will actually benefit or not?
Yeah, this is a good question. I've been looking into this for quite some time now. So let's address both of these things.
Yes.
Let's address wine, let's address alcohol, and let's address food. All right, so with alcohol, so what we do know is that alcohol does in fact help you to fall asleep faster. This is a fact across the board.
Yeah, it relaxes you.
Yeah, it's a sedative, and that's all good. The issue, however, is that we experience something with alcohol in your system and how your body metabolizes alcohol. It's called a REM rebound effect, right? REM rebound effect. And so what happens is we go into, earlier we talked about those sleep stages. Basically, you're unconscious, but your sleep stages are fragmented and broken. And so we'll go into a deep sleep.
What are the stages again of sleep?
So we're transitioning as we go from
You're awake?
waking state to sleep, we go from beta, alpha, theta, delta. But within our sleep, we have these 4 stages. So we have non-REM sleep, REM sleep, and some transitionary stages.
Gotcha.
And so some of these stages, when we're actually asleep and unconscious, get broken. And so our REM sleep is suppressed, right? And remember, REM sleep is where a lot of memory processing takes place.
So if you're drinking a lot at night, you'll have less memory. Is that what I'm hearing?
Do you know anybody who is drunk before they went to sleep and not remember what happened?
Lots of people.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's because of the sleep.
So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you got sleep. It's the quality of your sleep that matters.
Yes. Yeah. And you can literally forget what happened. This whole.
So many people say that. I don't remember a thing.
Yeah. It's because their REM sleep is damaged.
Wow.
But then there's a big rebound effect with the REM sleep towards the end of the sleep cycle. If somebody is getting 8 hours of sleep on alcohol, and so again, but this is not to say you can't drink. Right. It's just I would recommend give yourself a little bit of a curfew with the alcohol of a couple hours if you can. Like if you plan on getting to bed at midnight, maybe just stop drinking around 10. Give your body metabolizes alcohol relatively quickly for most folks, and you can accelerate and support the process by having some more water.
Is there a thing as having too much water before sleep?
If peeing is a problem, like so many, people come into my clinic and they're just like, I keep getting up in the middle of the night. They don't drink water all day, then they guzzle it before they go to bed. But there are some situations when folks have issues with their bladder and kidneys, things like that. But for most folks,
if you're drinking water before bed and you're waking up even once messes up your sleep, is what I'm hearing.
I mean, it can, but I don't want to make a psychological big deal out of it because it's okay. There's even research now, and it's come out recently, just in the last couple of years, about humans having basically two phases of sleep. So there's some evidence.
Wake up for a moment and then go back to sleep.
So what would happen if we're talking, 1,000 years ago? Let's go back even further, 10,000 years ago.
Yeah.
When folks are, you're living in tribes, you got a hut going, right? Yeah. So you go to sleep, but first of all, we would go to sleep earlier because when it gets dark,
7 o'clock at night. Yeah.
Safety, right? You're not out and about on the tundra, you know what I'm saying, where the lion can see you, but you can't see it, right?
You're protected a cave. Yeah.
And even if you think about sleep, because again, like I've been just processing this stuff for the last few years, if it wasn't as valuable as it is, we would have evolved out of it a long time ago. Just if you think about how vulnerable you are, right? It's just so much magic happens when you're sleeping that we just can't get anywhere else. And so anyways, we would go to sleep when the sun goes down and wake up maybe, so just say somebody goes to sleep at 9 o'clock. They sleep until maybe 1. You get up, maybe have a little snacky, maybe have sex, maybe, if you got fire, maybe you write or read by fire. But today, phone, right? If we get up, midnight snack, beaming light coming out of the refrigerator.
Crazy, right?
And and we're grabbing like a Twinkie, you know what I mean? But then you go back to sleep and you'd have time to get another, 3-4 hours of sleep in addition to that. So what I'm trying to say is it's not a problem that we wake up at night. And I've seen so many people get just very, just psychologically troubled.
Messed up with it,
that I wake up at night. It's okay. It's okay. We have to relax into it and understand that, things happen, our bodies, but for some folks, it is chronic. It's a chronic issue, and it usually has to do with what's happening with their hormones. Yeah. And if we did a hormone panel, we'd see that a lot of times we call them clinically tired and wired, where even though they're physiologically tired, their body's wired at night. The cortisol is spiking way too early in the evening, because your cortisol is actually supposed to elevate first thing in the morning, like between, like when the sun comes up.
Yeah.
That's how we are hardwired. Cortisol is not a bad thing. And that's another thing I want to make clear today. None of our hormones are bad. We wouldn't have them, but it just gets all of the bad press now. But cortisol helps your thyroid to work.
Right.
Your thyroid is regulating your metabolism. You want to burn fat, you need cortisol, all right? It's not a bad guy. It's just if it's produced in the wrong times or the wrong amounts, it could be a little bit of a problem.
Okay.
It's kind of, I think of it like Hulk, in the Avengers.
Sure.
It's like, he's got a role, but he might smash some stuff on accident if he's like given too much responsibility. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, so if we're looking at alcohol, just to go back on that, on that
2 hours before, don't be excessive with it.
Yeah.
I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
Don't get drunk.
Yeah. If you're getting drunk, you better believe
you're screwed. Doesn't matter how much time you got. Yeah.
The hangover is a result of the sleep damage. That's really the big thing.
Really?
Yeah.
So if you get a great sleep, you shouldn't have a hangover.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it's hard to have great sleep if you're drunk.
Yeah, you can forget. You forget about it. But also, and I know that a lot of people experience this, that you can handle it more when you're younger, right?
Yeah, but it's still, you're not going to remember things.
Yeah, I'm not saying that part.
Yeah.
And also, we're accelerating our aging when we do stuff like that. Sleep deprivation. I don't know if you talked with her, but I was talking with Alyssa Epple, and so her co-author of the telomere effect. They. Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn, she won the Nobel Prize for the discovery of telomerase. And so telomeres...
But you need them to be longer for you to have a longer life.
Telomerase is an enzyme that can add length back onto your telomeres, essentially reversing the aging process. Right. Essentially, it's very complicated, but just as essential. But what shortens your telomeres faster than anything, apparently, is sleep deprivation.
So if you're pulling all-nighters, you're doing 4 hours of sleep only, and you think that's cool, it's not cool.
It's not cool. You're accelerating the time that you're going to kick on.
You're going to die quicker.
Diabetes, heart disease. We used to see this stuff in folks who we describe as, quote, in the elderly population. Arthritis. Then it started to happen generations younger and younger and younger. Now we even have children who are getting adult onset diabetes. We had to change the name to a type 2 diabetes, right? Because it's no longer just adults getting it, right? And so just to make that clear, and I know this from experience because this happened to me. I had basically arthritis of the spine when I was 20, right? in track practice in St. Louis. I was doing a 200-meter time trial, and I broke my hip from running because my body, I accelerated the aging process so much.
Really?
Because of the way I was living my life.
You weren't sleeping well?
Nothing was well, but a big part of me for me is like, what are you making your body out of? Which we get into and talk about another time, but if you're not giving your body the raw materials to build your house, your physical house, it's just gonna do a patchwork job. I
don't remember you saying this. You broke your hip in practice.
At track practice, no trauma, nobody hit me, 200-meter time trial, broke my hip.
Man, Bo Jackson up in here.
Dude, I ran a 4.5 when I was 15.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like everything was looking great, but just
what were you doing?
Man, I was made out of true story, I was made out of probably 5% Emo's pizza. You know what I mean?
Gosh, it's so good though. Clayton, Missouri, man, Emo's pizza is so good.
I barely ate. I didn't eat a salad until I was in my 20s.
I didn't eat salad until about 5 years ago. Till my 30s, man.
Yeah, but you were sneaking other stuff in though.
I was doing veggies. I was doing other stuff. But I didn't eat a salad because I was I'm still a picky SOB right now. Yeah. But it's like every year I evolve more and more and I try new things. But I figured out a way to make a salad taste great.
Yeah.
Because I never liked the dressings. They always smelled bad for me. But Sweet Green, have you been to Sweet Green yet?
I don't think
so. The place
so.
is amazing. There's got to be one by you. Sweet Green. It's kind of like just a build your own salad. So it's like I can throw some chicken in there or I can throw something else, but it's got a dressing. I found one dressing that I like. It's like this spicy cashew, and that made the difference for me. So I'm just fill up all the veggies in there and just a tiny bit of cashew dressing, and it's like I'm good. And I try to eat that almost every day.
Ooh. So now we know your secret, man. So it's the spicy cashew
dressing.
A
little bit, not too much, because I don't want to be drizzled with calories and all this stuff. But it's just a little bit. And
what's in the salad?
So I put romaine and arugula and romaine or baby spinach. I mix up that 3 combination. Usually just do 2 of them. Sometimes I do kale, but it's a little too hard for me now. So I do arugula and baby spinach usually, and then romaine. And then I put carrots, onions, sometimes squash, cauliflower, broccoli, sometimes sweet potato based on what I'm doing. Then I'll put chicken and a little bit of that cashew sauce, and that's it, man.
Man, congratulations. You're adulting so
hard
right now,
but it's like, those are the only ingredients that I'll put in.
Yeah. Listen to
the
this,
same
bro.
thing over and over.
You're winning on a whole different level. So and I've been talking about this a lot recently, but I've been studying the brain for a new project I've been doing. And a recent study, this was done at Chicago's Rush University, and they compiled all this data. They had thousands and thousands of study participants. And they found that test participants who were consuming 2 servings of green leafy vegetables a day had brains that were 11 years younger than the rest of the study participants who weren't getting that much in.
Wow.
Crazy, right?
So leafy greens every day, 2 servings.
Yeah. And this was done on elderly folks. And so you can keep your brain 11 years younger by getting in 2 servings. 2 servings a day.
So cognitive enhancement refers to, the good stuff that the brain does. Can we make that better? And so what does exercise do in that realm? Well, probably number 1, it is improving your ability to focus and shift your attention. An issue for anybody that struggles with ADHD and just anybody, because we're just bombarded with so many different things, and it's a great value to be able to choose what you focus on and let everything else go. That is enhanced with exercise. Why? Because the growth factors and the hormones and the endorphins that are surging in your brain after exercise and that go up as you increase your cardiorespiratory function help the prefrontal cortex work better. They help the synapses make new connections. And some studies show even that the axons are growing and are getting stronger, and you're basically strengthening these neurons in the prefrontal cortex. So that's one area of cognitive enhancement. The second is what you mentioned is the hippocampus. So the hippocampus is one of only 2 brain areas in the adult where brand new brain cells are born in adulthood. And the only thing that you can do today that will enhance that is to up your physical aerobic exercise, because aerobic exercise enhances growth factors. And it's those growth factors that really seem to go up specifically in the hippocampus. And they help the brand new neurons that will grow even if you're a couch potato, but they'll help more of them grow and integrate. And those new neurons work better than the old neurons that have been in your hippocampus since you were born. They're kind of like teenager neurons. They're all excited and they get all, into joining different memory circuits, and they help your memory work better. So you want as many of those as possible. And the third major area is mood. And mood is one word. Of course, mood is positive mood, negative mood. Everything is going on there. Yeah. And what exercise is doing is stimulating the release of serotonin, dopamine, noradrenaline, endorphins that are all hormones and neurochemicals that are enhancing good mood. And so who doesn't want more of that?
Right. Oh, we have access to that,
Yeah,
Again, it's just so inspiring to move some, and specifically aerobic exercise for this one. And when you say these growth factors, one of those is BDNF.
Yes.
Is that one of them?
Yeah, one of them is BDNF. It's called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Yeah. And that's the one we know the most about. But that is not the only story. There are a number of other growth factors that we're still learning about that may be more important, not just for the hippocampus, but for other areas like the prefrontal cortex that we know is being enhanced. Oh, and let me just say that for the hippocampus, there's evidence that it's the aerobic exercise. So you really have to get your heart rate up. Walking is good enough for mood, which should make everybody go out and take a walk just to start to enhance your mood and get familiar with that. And this is going back to meditation, self-awareness. Can you be self-aware enough to know, that really did improve my mood, and be able to, this is where you get to do a little bit of self-experimentation. What is that walk that is best for my mood? Does it change if I do it in the morning, at lunch, in the evening? What if I go a little bit faster, make it a power walk? What if I walk with friends? All of these things can be explored and kind of refined for your own lifestyle.
Something that came up for me when you were talking a little bit earlier and talking about the different parts of the brain and how it creates this amazing network. And you mentioned the synapse, and you mentioned axons, the axon terminals, and another part is the dendrites. But I've got you here. Listen, can you explain to people what is going on there with those different aspects of what our brain is doing, creating these connections?
Sure. So you have just kind of outlined the main structures of the major working unit of the brain. So the brain, very, very complicated, but it's only made up of two types of cells, neurons and glia. Neurons are the workhorse, and they are the ones that have synapses and electrical, communication. Glia are support cells. Now, more and more is known that they were thought to be just, kind of wall decoration, but they're doing much more. We know a lot more about neurons, and it's the neurons that are kind of the stars. One thing I can say, they're prettier than the dendrites. They're more expansive. They have a cell body. They have they kind of look like a tree, where cell body is a little bit like a trunk, and then the leaves are the dendrites. That is where the neurons are taking in information. It's receiving information at the level of the dendrites, at the leaves of the tree, and then it has an output, which is kind of like the roots of the tree, and that is the axon. And those axons go to dendrites of other neurons and provide input there. And so neurons communicate through brief bursts of electrical activity called action potentials. And everything that we know about what our brain is doing. So right now you are looking at me, you're listening to me, you're comprehending my language, you are nodding your head, so you have motor functions. All of that is being done by these neurons and their brief electrical activity, the action potential. And so it sounds simple there, but to really understand what's going on, more than many, many lifetimes of work.
Oh my goodness. Like, even when you were describing what's going on with me, I was like in a trance. Like, wait, she's talking about what's happening in my brain right now. It's just so cool. It's so cool. So thank you for sharing that, because it just gives us a little bit of a understanding. So what I would love to do is to talk a little bit more about exercise. And I want to know what you do.
Yeah. So I have recently set myself a new goal for 2019 exercise, and that is 7 days a week, first thing in the morning, minimum half an hour, increase the weights. So I'm great at aerobics. I teach an aerobic kind of class. Those are my favorite kinds of classes to go to. But I need more weight-bearing exercises. And I always hated that. I hated push-ups. I hated sit-ups. I hated all of that. But now I'm kind of getting into it. And so I do all online. So I do it all at home now to really maximize my time spent and make sure that I use every minute effectively. And so I just choose my weights workouts, and I mix it up. And even if it's too hard, I stop it and I go slower, and then I turn it on again. And I love I do it shorter so I can do it 7 days a week. But I love the ritual that I create in my life of that is first thing I do. So actually, I first do my tea meditation, about 45 minutes, and then I do my exercise, and then I eat breakfast. So that's what I do 7 days a week.
I love it. I was wondering about the 7 days a week, and I was like, ritual. That's the thing.
That's like you can't skip it if it is part of your daily ritual. And that's just what I used to go to the gym, and I would go to the hour classes because that's what they have at the gym. And I couldn't work out the next day. I was too tired, and I needed to rest, which was fine. But it was messing up my ritual. Yeah. And so now I do shorter workouts, and so I can do it every day. And I'm definitely getting stronger. So,
Awesome.
And I can work harder because I know it's not going to last as long as that hour. So for me, I'm really loving this new formula.
I love it. So you're going to be the one trip, with the grocery bags, one trip. You're not going back to the car, no help. You
That's
carry
right.
all the bags yourself.
Yeah, of course. I live in New York City. I have to go blocks carrying my groceries.
Yeah, that's so nuts. Like those are those small things that you don't think about. But this is also, I've been here several times now at this point, but that's one of the things I admire is like everybody is they're just moving. And the way that they move is like, I have somewhere to go. I have somewhere to be.
Yeah.
And if you're in the way, you got to be careful.
That's right.
So,
that is right.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So that aspect for me, so on the other side with me, it's something in the morning, So this might be the strength training because I go hard when I do that.
Yeah.
Or it might just be jumping on the rebounder, but I do some form of physical activity every morning, even on Sundays.
Yeah.
If I just grab the rebounder, jump on that bad boy for 10 minutes, watch watch Wendy Suzuki's TED Talk while I'm doing that, feeding my spirit, before I start my day and go out the door, whatever I might do. So it's the ritual, having that built into, so your brain starts to come to expect it.
Yeah.
And then it will start to feel weird if you don't do it.
Right. Exactly. That's the trick. That's the trick.
So that's with those axons and dendrites.
That's right.
So cool. So cool. So I want to talk a little bit about some research that you've kind of been into right now. With the EEG and like long-term changes to the brain potentially?
Yeah,
Let's talk about
absolutely. So one of our most exciting recent discoveries has to do with the changes that happen after a 3-month exercise regimen that we're really trying to get people to increase their cardiorespiratory function. And these were low-fit people, and we asked them to start going to spin class 3 times a week. And they did, 3 to 4 times a week, and for this 3-month period. And we not only looked at their cognitive functions, so their mood improved, their memory, their recognition memory got better, but we also asked, could we see any difference in the general electrical activity of their brain? And the most sensitive point that we found was what we call baseline measures. So just taking, and this is non-invasive. This is EEG, electroencephalograms, where you put a little cap on your head. You might have seen it in hospital pictures. And you don't feel it at all, yet it's able to measure a very broad electrical activity that is being generated by your brain.
Crazy.
And we are measuring just as you're either staring at a crosshair on a computer screen or just closing your eyes, just mind wandering, either at the beginning of this 3-month period or after you have completed your exercise regimen, or the control group there was video game playing. So, but this isn't first shooter video game. It was very competitive video Scrabble that they were playing for 3 months, the same amount of time. What we found is during these baseline measures, a particular pattern of electrical activity associated with relaxation is called the alpha wave. When you're relaxing, getting ready for sleep, you have higher levels of alpha. And so what we found is after the 3 months of exercise, compared to those video Scrabble players, the people that exercised had higher resting levels of alpha, which basically meant that their brain was more relaxed at baseline when they were in this mind-wandering period, which is consistent with the better mood that they had and also the better stress. We didn't look at stress response in particular, but other studies have reported that exercise can improve your stress response. And also many people notice that in themselves.
Yeah, there's definitely so much anecdotal evidence for that one.
Yes.
But also alpha is also associated with the ability to focus if we want to. It's more of a relaxed, intentional, like it's just a good place to be in mentally. And knowing that exercise is one of those tools that can get us here easier.
Right.
Oh my gosh, that's super valuable.
Yes,
that's so
it
awesome.
is. It is.
There's so many different things I want to talk to you about.
Okay.
But I would really love, since I have you here, and I know that you've got some stuff on the horizon, which I have to do this again. Let's just commit now.
Okay.
That we're going to see each other more.
Okay. Look,
but
yes, let's
you're
do that.
getting into this space which is, really an epidemic now, and folks dealing with anxiety.
Yes.
And the title of the book itself says a lot, and it's already intriguing to me. So can you share a little bit?
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
Little flakes.
So my next book is called Good Anxiety, Bad Anxiety, and it's going to come out in September 2019. It's really excited about it. And I have to say that, so the basic idea is we help define what bad anxiety is. Most people understand what bad anxiety is, but we also define what good anxiety is. And the extra little kicker is that we identify ways that you could actually turn the core features of everyday anxiety. Now, this is not hospitalization level anxiety that we're dealing with. This is everyday anxiety that you and I feel, which is why I'm an expert on everyday anxiety, as you are, and as we are, as a general population. But how does the feature of everyday anxiety end up turning into a superpower that you can use? And so I think that also intrigues everybody. And I'm going to tell you how we ended up going that route. Because first it was just good anxiety, bad anxiety. And I was ready to jump into writing this story and really getting into. I had outlined all the different brain circuits that I was going to describe as part of this book, and I was literally days away from starting the first draft of it, and I had a tragedy in my family. So my younger brother, who was only 50 years old, died of heart attack. And it was last May. And it devastated me in a way that I never would have imagined. It devastated the whole family. I mean, my brother was such an athletic, fit person. He's the last person that you would expect to succumb to a heart attack, but he had one. And it not only plunged me into just grief, but a level of depression and anxiety that came with it that I'd never experienced before. And it was awful. I mean, I couldn't do anything. I was, just went home, spent time with the family, started to slowly heal. And soon after my brother's memorial, or right after my brother's memorial, I went on vacation with the same friend that I went to Bali with, which was lovely. And I started to realize then that while it was the most horrible thing, I mean, I'm not the only person that had a sibling pass away unexpectedly, but I started to realize that it really changed something in me, and it allowed me to appreciate the love of the people that were left so much more than I ever did before. Partially because I wish I had appreciated my brother more when he was actually here. And I realized, oh my God, that's a superpower. I just discovered a superpower in myself that was born out of the most horrible anxiety and depression and grief that I'd ever experienced before. And I realized it's not just switching bad anxiety to good anxiety, because then I had to write the book because I already had a contract and I had to get it written. But you can find a through line to superpowers for all of those good anxiety features that we had originally identified. And the book got transformed. And I got so excited about writing it because it's like, okay, maybe this was some little good that came out of that horrible experience that I had.
Wow. New meaning.
Yeah.
Came from that. And that is super motivating, I'm sure, on so many levels. Thank you for sharing that. And I cannot wait. And, I know, thank you for sharing that, because I know so many people have experienced the loss.
Yeah.
And for many of us, it might have come at a time where maybe we don't really recollect, or maybe we haven't experienced that, but this is a part of life that we don't really talk about. It's kind of taboo.
It is.
And it's like, because we don't want to look at it, and it's hurtful even to think about. And I'm even right now, I'm hurting a little bit thinking about it, if somebody I would lose, but I have had loss, and I'm thinking about my grandmother. And since there's a beautiful thing that was born out of that, again, because I same thing you just said, I cherish and the relationships I have now even more, and I'm paying more attention, and I'm asking questions, because the one thing that I feel that I miss was there's so many things I want to ask her, and now I just feel like, and you can choose your own belief system, but just believing that she's speaking through other things in a sense, and I'm just grateful. Just like, it's just one of those things where it's just like, it doesn't seem like there's silver lining here, but there is, and I can't wait. I'm gonna be the first to get the book, I would imagine. So can't wait for that. And
thank you.
If you could, again, there's so many things I want to talk to you about, which we'll save some for the next time.
Okay. Yes.
But on your first interview with me, we talked about because you mentioned you teach.
Yes.
Not just the intellectual science stuff, but the aerobics.
Yes, I do.
But it's a specific flavor
yes.
that you're known for. Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I teach a form of exercise called intensati. Inten stands for intention, and sati is a Pali word that means mindfulness or awareness. And this is an exercise that was developed by an amazing fitness instructor here in New York City. Her name is Patricia Moreno. She still teaches here in the city, but I was very lucky to be trained by her, and because this was the form of exercise that motivated me the most. I loved going to this class. And so I taught a free Intensati class at NYU for 6 years, 12 months a year, once a week, all year round. And then my schedule got too busy. So I now teach it for the lectures that I give. So I give a lot of lectures for big corporations, small corporations, lots of different venues. And so I just got to teach at a beautiful yoga studio in Miami called Sacred Spaces at one of the an invited talk that I gave. That was so much fun. So I gave my academic talk to the group, and then all 25 of them came to this beautiful Sacred Spaces, and we got to do a whole Intensati session, and then we had a vegan lunch, which was delicious.
Wow, that's so cool. And I love just the evolution. This is why I love, talking to you and, knowing you before and just seeing all the things that have happened since.
Yeah.
And just, our ability to kind of navigate and decide, because for you, like, that was a lot. 6 years for free in addition to, and then having this be a new path. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So Intensati is what?
Oh, sorry.
What is...
Yes. So Intensati pairs physical movements from kickboxing, dance, and yoga and martial arts with positive spoken affirmations. So every move, like if you're punching back and forth, just front punches in kickboxing, you would pair that with an affirmation. For example, you would say, I am strong now. And another affirmation could be, I'm inspired now. I believe I will succeed. What I give is what I get. I feel great. Any affirmation that you want, you can kind of string them together in what's called a series. And of course, your series that you create for yourselves are based on what you're going through. So struggles or just celebrations. And it's a great therapeutic thing for the teacher. But the amazing thing is that all of these positive, affirming, aspirational kinds of affirmations that you put will mean something different to every single person in your class, which means that you see them all doing it as an instructor, and you see their energy coming out, and you know that it's all positive, but it's kind of coming from all these individual beautiful places, and it creates this classroom that is just so much fun to be in.
Hey, if you like this video, make sure to check out this video right here to up-level your health today. These changes happen in the brain very quickly, and that leads into number 3, reduced cognitive performance. So being able to manage our emotions, being able to manage